Spencer Danielson, should he be the head coach? Well, Boise State's won 2 games in a row, and we've seen a completely different output from this team. Completely different performance, completely different level of play from all sides. Offense, defense, even special teams, which wasn't really a problem point, but improvement in the coverage unit and the return unit overall. Slight, but there. Overall, Spencer Danielson's done an amazing job. He really has. And I do believe that he is going to be a great head coach for Boise State at some point in the future. But I do, and I'm not hating on Spencer Danielson, but I do want to say this. This roster should not be 7-5. I've said it all season long, that this roster is too good to be performing record-wise this poorly. Yes, Washington would have been a loss. Really, you would have to go out and perform, 2007 Fiesta Bowl level to win against that team. It was probably not going to happen. It could have been closer. The result could have been closer than it was, but a loss was going to come whether Chris Peterson is at the helm or Andy Avalos. More than likely. Obviously, that is shot with Chris Peterson, but more than likely. So at least one loss on. But then you look at Colorado State. You look at Fresno State. You look at Memphis. You look at UCF. All of those games could have and should have been won by Boise State. And especially the Memphis game. UCF game was a little bit back and forth, but especially the Memphis game, that was the turning point. And that was where I said Andy Avalos needed to be fired because he lost that game for Boise State. My point is, this roster should have at least 10 wins. It's not been the roster's fault that Boise State is 7-5. Any competent coach could get this team to 10 wins or more. And Spencer Danielson is a more than competent coach. He is a solid, good coach. So of course this team is performing better. Of course they're performing well. That doesn't mean that Boise State's reached its maximum potential with this roster under Spencer Danielson. Now they might have. Who knows? There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of ambiguities. There's a lot of analysis, which, I like to do the analysis part, and that's what my channel is based on. But while facts are a basis of analysis, a lot of it is projection and conjecture on top. So the facts that we have is that this team is 2-0 under Spencer Danielson, headed for a Mountain West Championship game more than likely, and a bowl game, and may end the season on a 4-0 run. But we also know that this roster is incredibly talented, and that Boise State in general, based on their level of recruiting compared to the rest of the Mountain West, compared to the rest of the Group of Five, the amount of economic input that comes into this team because of their raised profile, because of the blue turf and the Boise State name and everything that they've done and that they're capable of, because their increased TV numbers and the revenue that comes in from that. The argument could be made that any competent coach should be able to get this team to 9 or 10 wins every single season. It was a big negative, a big downside on I'm struggling for the word here, but a big mark against Andy Avalos that this team went 7-5, only barely got to 10 wins with Dirk Cutter stepping in last season, and was set up for 7-5 or less this year under his helm. And I do believe that if he was still with this team, Boise State would be looking at 6-6 or less. Probably more likely 5-7. Utah State is not a terrible team, and they, I think, could have had a chance of beating Boise State with Andy Avalos at the helm. So the point here is that, any good coach should get this win to get this team to 9 or 10 wins every season. They should be able to beat Air Forces of the world that are on their third string quarterback. They should be able to beat the Utah States of the world that end up on their third string quarterback, second string quarterback midway through the game, and third string quarterback by the end of the game. Boise State's beaten 2 teams now that have both been on their third string quarterback or less by the time the game has ended. So they haven't beaten a full roster yet. They should beat these teams. These are not world beaters. These are not teams that you don't expect Boise State to win against. Now, with Andy Avalos at the helm, everything was a question, so Boise State was not expected to win against these teams. But now that Boise State is back, that they've restored themselves, you expect them to win against these teams. So a good coach should get the team to 9 or 10 wins every year. A really good coach should get your team to playing in a conference championship or being in competition for it every single year. the Dan Hawkins, the Brian Harsons of the world, should be able to take this team, this Boise State team, and get Boise State to 10 plus wins and in the running for just barely outside or just losing in the conference championship game. They should be one of the top 2 teams in the conference every single year. Maybe they won't be undefeated. Maybe we'll get a miracle season like 2003. Maybe you'll get a really, really solid year where you overcome things like 2014 and get to a Fiesta Bowl. But at the very minimum, you're going to get your team to a conference championship or being in contention for it. A great coach, an exceptional coach with this roster, because again, it's not a Power 5 roster. This isn't Bama. There are things that Group of 5 teams have to struggle against, and playing out of conference against Power 5 teams is something you're going to have to overcome. But a great exceptional coach should be able to take this roster, overcome those things, and have Boise State in the top 15 rankings, competing for Fiesta Bowls and beyond. And the exceptional coach in this case is Chris Peterson. So for Boise State, Spencer Danielson is a good coach. He may even be a great coach for Boise State. But he is at the very least a good coach, a very good coach for Boise State. But there are exceptional coaches out there. There are those options. There are those coaches that could take this roster and put them back in contention for the New Year's 6 games and playoffs, which is now what the new Group of 5 is going for. Could put them in the playoffs. Could put them back on Sports Illustrated. Could put them back at the top of the college football pyramid. There are those candidates out there. Kellen Moore, I believe, could do that. I think Ryan Dinwiddie is in that category. And then underneath that, there are proven, really good coaches that could also do that. Brian Harsin, I think, could come back and do what really good coaches do. Spencer Danielson is an unproven commodity. The players love him. He inspires them. He's passionate. He acts like a head coach. The more and more I watch him, the more excited and confident I am about him as a potential candidate. And he is a potential candidate for Boise State. But there are proven, with experience, very good options, and there are potential exceptional options out there. I don't think after a 2-game performance, I don't think after winning a Mountain West Championship game, I don't think after winning a bowl game, I don't think after finishing season 4-0, you should give up the chance for the exceptional option, if it's out there, to go for the unproven. 4 games is not proving anything. There are 4 games versus Group of 5 programs who are, UNLV, is kind of a recent development, but not a proven one. Not top Group of 5 programs, and then a mid to lower level Power 5 team in a bowl game. If you go 4-0, that's impressive, especially considering how Boise State started. And I'm not taking anything away from what Boise State could achieve, what Spencer Danielson has been able to achieve with this roster. And I think that if he is the one that's hired, I think he'll do a great job. I think, based on what we've seen so far, he should be a top candidate for this position. But I also think that the fan base needs to take a bigger picture perspective to this whole situation right now and look at what the potential could be. Kellen Moore is a long shot, but he's a potential candidate. Dinwiddie is a long shot, but he's a potential candidate. If the exceptional options say no, then you go down, or are taken off the table for whatever reason, then you go down to the very, very good options. And there are a lot of those out there as well. And below that, you have the good, or perhaps very good but unproven, and Spencer Danielson's in that third tier. But he may end up being the one you go with. I would not have anything against Spencer Danielson being picked over a more experienced, very good option. Because I think he's trending towards being that very good option for Boise State. And over time, he may be the exceptional coach. Chris Peterson, the exceptional coach that I've presented as my, as the comparison here, said that he thinks that Spencer Danielson is going to be a great coach down the line. That is high praise from the greatest to ever do it at Boise State. So this is not a negative against Spencer Danielson. I am not saying he shouldn't be a candidate. I'm not saying he wouldn't do a good job with this roster. But I'm also saying we should look at the bigger picture overall and not jump to conclusions and decisions. And luckily, it's not in my court. It's not in the hands of Bronco Nation. It's not in the hands of the media. Luckily, this decision is with Jeremiah Dickey and his staff. And I believe that they will look at the bigger picture and take the best option out there. So I am incredibly confident in what Jeremiah Dickey and his staff are going to do. And I think the best thing that we can really do right now is to just support them in this search. But overall, Bronco Nation, Spencer Danielson is starting to get a lot of support. Former players coming out for him, the media coming out for him, the fan base overall, and for a good reason. He's earned that. He's earned that support. He's earned that praise. And regardless of whether or not he gets a job or not, that should not be taken as an assessment of his performance in the latter end of the season, because it has been exceptional and historic. What he's been able to do with this roster. Even if Boise State loses the Mountain West Championship game and loses the bowl game, I still think that what he's done the last 2 games here has proven that he is an exceptional coach with a bright future. And I would have the results the rest of the season takes nothing away from my assessment of what he is capable of doing, what he's been able to do this season, and the high praise that I have for him. So I have incredibly high praise for Spencer Danielson, and if he's picked by Jeremiah Dickey, I will be satisfied with that, completely satisfied with that, because he's definitely earned that look. But I did want to caution, because we as a fan base tend to get so caught up in the emotion. It happened with Andy Avalos. Lose a game, fan base starts to shift against him. Wins a game, fan base shifts back towards his corner. Back and forth, waves and waves, a tidal waves of emotion, and there's just no bigger picture in the fan base, and that's fine because we're fans, right? That's our energy. We're energized by the moment. That's what a fan is. But we also have to be a little bit more analytical and look at the bigger picture overall. And right now, Spencer Danielson is riding a tidal wave that hopefully will carry Boise State to a Mountain West Championship game and a bowl game versus a Pac-12 opponent and a win. And a 4-0 and end the season. Get to 9 wins on a year when, my goodness, you were looking at not even getting bowl eligibility. And I'm so excited for the end of the season. But at the same time, I do want us to take a breather and look at the bigger picture overall. So I'll step off of my soapbox for the day. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, win or lose, regardless of results, regardless who ends up being the head coach for the Broncos, go Big Blue!